بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وإمام المرسلين سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين اللهم فقهنا في الدين وعلمنا تأويل واجعلنا من خير أمة سيدنا محمد عليه أفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. We seek Allah's protection from knowledge that does not benefit, from a heart that has no khushu, from a nafs that's never had enough, from an eye that does not tear, from a dua that's not heard. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, everyone's doing well. Before we do continue with the seerah, just obviously everyone's aware of what's happening in Palestine, Gaza. It is truly full of what's happening. Ask everyone please to make dua wholeheartedly every time. Don't think the fact that my dua won't make a difference. Dua is something very powerful, inshallah. Make dua for all around the world, all Muslims. I mean, you got Afghanistan as well. They've had earthquakes there, so remember all Muslims in your duas. And don't give up in terms of making duas, okay? As much as possible. I mean, I can speak so much about it, but I know there is so much being said already, and I suppose scholars, etc., have been saying a lot more who put it a lot better than me. But as a kind of nobody, it's like you say your part. You try to get the message across as much as possible. Wherever little you can do, whether that's continue kind of talk to your MPs, write to your MPs, look what's being done. These are innocent lives here, babies, children, women. They've not done anything wrong. But keep pushing on that side of things, inshallah, and may Allah Ta'ala make it easy for them. So we continue the seerah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the biography of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and lessons that we can learn from it. And the Umrah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, simply because this is what it is. This is the intention has been to set off for Umrah. The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has this dream where he's doing tawaf, and shaving his hair, etc. So the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam sets off for Umrah. Okay. And we talked about the different things that took place. He made it absolutely clear he's there. He's going to do pilgrimage. Okay, he has nothing to do with battle. Don't forget, this is on the back of the Battle of the Trenches. They've spent that kind of month, where the Quraysh and their allies, confederates, the Quraysh, have tried their level best to attack Medina, okay, and they've been unsuccessful. And straight on the back of that, now the Prophet ﷺ has decided he's going to go to Mecca, so go to the enemy's territory, almost unarmed, not for battle. Okay, we're just there to do the pilgrimage, okay, to make the Umrah, to make Umrah. I did mention to you last week that I was going to show you, to get a bit of an idea, so I'll bring up a map here. So give me one sec. Okay, let me just okay, so hopefully people can see that. Now where I've marked it there is so much of the Hudaybiya. When we'll speak about that maybe next week when we look more into the Treaty of Hudaybiya. But today I just want to show you so you can see Actually, you probably won't, so let me bring it up there. Right next to it there, you can see Mecca. Okay, so if I zoom in a bit, so you can see it's on the side. Okay, so the Prophet ﷺ was said, so you've got, if you look, if I move more across there, you'll be able to see Jeddah. Okay, so when you come from Jeddah, basically you're pretty much going past Hudaybiya. So the Prophet ﷺ and the companions, they set off from Medina, or they're from the top. Okay, so if I just bring this up, there you go, Medina there. Now compare that to, and again I'll zoom out a bit more. Compare that to, from there it kind of looks like a straight line, but that was not the path. You're almost going off to the, if you go directly towards Mecca, that's towards the right there. So they were heading down. Okay, so they were heading down, heading towards Mecca, but then they made this kind of turn because you had Khalid ibn Walid who would kind of went out of the kind of Haram area and waited for them on the path. Okay, but then they kind of diverted, and this is where Qaswa stopped. Okay, and I'll read a few hadiths on this, because I did say I was going to read a few hadiths on it. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of show you there. I'll show you some more pictures in terms of Hudaybiya, etc. next week, inshallah. Okay. But that was, yeah, that's kind of, I wanted to show you on the map how it is. So, as we move on, okay, as we move on, so just like last week we spoke about, how they kind of diverted. Khalid ibn Walid was waiting there, so then the Prophet ﷺ diverted all of them to the side, to his place, what is known as Hudaybiya. Okay, just a few narrations that we done, then we'll move on. So narrated Al-Miswar ibn Makrama and Marwan ibn al-Aqam. One of them said more than his friend. They said the Prophet ﷺ set out in the company of over 1,000 of his companions in the year of Al-Hudaybiya. And when he reached Dhu al-Hulayfa, he decorated and marked his sacrificial animal, assumed the state of Ihram for Umrah there, and dispatched a scout from the tribe of Huza. Obviously, we already spoke about this, but I just wanted to come out with the narrations. The Prophet ﷺ then continued until he reached Ghadir al-Ashtar, where he met his scout, who said, the Quraysh have gathered a great number of people against you, and they have gathered the Ahbish tribes against you, and they will fight you and prevent you from entering the house. Thereupon he said, give me your opinion, O people. So this is to his companions, to the Sahaba. Look, the Prophet ﷺ, he has these discussions with his companions. Okay, he continues to have these discussions with his companions. Okay, and this is him teaching us. This is the way you do stuff. Okay, have the kind of conversations, discuss. Okay, what's the best option? What's the best approach to take? So he said, "O people, give me your opinion. O people, do you think that I should destroy the families and offsprings of those who want to bar us from the house? Then if they should ambush us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will destroy them all, even a spy of the polytheists, and we will leave them in a miserable state." This is when Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq who said, "O Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you have come with the intention of visiting this house, and you did not want to fight or wage war." And again, this is confirming it time and time again. You did not want to fight or wage war on anybody. So proceed with that, and whoever stops us from it, we will fight him. The Prophet ﷺ said, proceed with the name of Allah. Okay. Again, this is a similar narration the Messenger of Allah set out at the time of Hudaybiya, and when they were on the way, the Prophet ﷺ said, indeed, Khalid ibn Walid is leading the front cavalry of Quraysh at Al-Ghamim. So take the route on the right. By Allah, Khalid did not perceive their arrival until the dust arising from the march of the Muslim army reached him, at which point he turned back early to inform Quraysh. The Prophet ﷺ continued to advance until he reached, so they wanted to continue. So kind of divert, away from Khalid ibn Walid and the horsemen, but then continue to Mecca. Okay, but continue to Mecca. So the plan was not to stop; it was to continue. Okay, the Prophet ﷺ continued to advance until he reached the mountainous way through which he would go to them. Then his she-camel sat down. Thereupon the people exclaimed, get going, get going. But she persisted. So they said, Al-Qaswa has become stubborn. Al-Qaswa has become stubborn. Whereupon the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Qaswa has not become stubborn, for it is not her nature, but she was stopped by him who stopped the elephant. Then he said, by the one in whose hand is my soul, if they ask me anything that will respect the ordinances of Allah, I will grant it to them. Thereafter he rebuked her and she got up. Okay, so then they move away from them until they dismount at the farthest end of Hudaybiya. Okay, and we'll continue to obviously mention a few of these as we go along. So this is the situation then. Okay, we left at the fact that they've reached Hudaybiya, and we mentioned about the miracle of the water. Okay, and then everyone had fulfilled their thirst. Then you had that local, the tribe that came and gave them, assisted them in terms of giving them food. Okay, so the Muslims avoid Khalid ibn Walid and his horsemen, and that were waiting. Now the Quraysh again have a kind of council meeting. They know that they have diverted and are at Hudaybiya. You can't just kind of disappear when you have 1,500 people. But they get news about how many there are, and they clearly have not come armed for war or anything like that. So the Quraysh decide that they're going to ask for an envoy, or initially the Prophet ﷺ sends a man called Hirash. Now there's kind of difference in terms of the kind of timeline of these, who went what. There's a lot of back and forth this page. Okay, there's a lot of back and forth in terms of the envoy, so you might get different versions in different books. Okay, this happened first, and I'll, like I said, try to come out with these, like I said, from we got the Seerah book with a lot of these in there. I'll try to go through that. But so the Prophet ﷺ sends a man called Hirash, and he went to kind of begin negotiations with the Quraysh about how the Muslims are going to enter Mecca, because the Prophet ﷺ realized that this is going to be like a very sensitive matter. Okay, so the Prophet ﷺ, and some mention is the fact that the Prophet ﷺ sent him on one of his camels, not Qaswa, but one of his other camels, to kind of show, I've sent this person of authority to you. Okay, so the idea was to first just send, kind of almost a neutral person. Here you go, off you go. So while Hirash was there, Ikrama, the son of Abu Jahl, actually kind of hamstrung his camel. So he actually kind of wounded his camel so that he would not be able to leave. Because come on, he's just going to come into the territory. You're Muslim coming in, how dare you? And they're like kind of, there you go, they're ready to beat him up. Basically, they stop, and then you have others come, some of the other kind of Quraysh that kind of jump in to stop them from beating him up, and he fled back. Okay, and he said, look, this is what they've done to me. He fled back to the Prophet ﷺ and said, look, this is what they've done to me. Okay. So then the Prophet ﷺ calls for someone to come forward to go negotiate. Okay, and the first person that he looks at is Sayyidina Umar. Okay, so he looks at Sayyidina Umar naturally, fearless. Sayyidina Umar, he should go. I remember when he was leaving for, on the Hijrah, and he said, look, anyone wants, he wants their wives to be, come meet me at this point. I'll be waiting. And along with him, a lot of the poor kind of went along, because they realized, we'll get some protection from him. Okay, so this is Sayyidina Umar. Okay, this is Sayyidina Umar who said, the Prophet ﷺ said that he should go. But this is Sayyidina Umar then again speaking about, it's not about, anything about ego, etc. I'm going to go show them that this is it, and I'll show them it now. The Prophet ﷺ realized that, look, we've only just sent a person, a neutral person, and the Prophet ﷺ realized as well, look, this neutral person is not going to work. We need someone of like a bit of authority. Okay, and then Umar realized that, look, he's gone, this is what they've done now. There's a lot of enmity, deep enmity towards me in Mecca. Okay, and no one in my tribe will be kind of strong enough or powerful or kind of influential enough to be able to offer me any meaningful protection. Okay, so he said, look, Ya Rasulullah, if you want me to go, I'll go, but this is the situation, and no one can deny the bravery of Sayyidina Umar. Okay, and again, unfortunately, these little things that the sex kind of pick up just to try to kind of show the Sahaba in bad light. Okay, you kind of know who I'm talking about, but anyone that knows, anyone that kind of reads the Seerah, anyone that knows and realize who Sayyidina Umar is, how brave Sayyidina Umar is, but they're not here to fight. They're here for Umrah. Okay, peacefully, they just want to do Umrah and they're going to return. They're not here to fight. So Sayyidina Umar is kind of thinking as well, look, we need to think about who would be most successful. So then when Sayyidina Umar mentions this, the Prophet ﷺ then says, okay, who do you suggest? And then Sayyidina Umar suggests Sayyidina Uthman. Okay, Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu. And he said, look, Uthman is well known. And despite the fact that he was a kind of a very early Muslim, Sayyidina Uthman was a very early Muslim, remember, he not actually participated in Badr or Uhud. Okay, so he hadn't actually fought in these battles. Okay, he hadn't actually fought against the Quraysh, and he came from a powerful tribe. Okay, who would be able to offer him protection. Actually, he was, you can almost say that. So Abu Sufyan, who's the kind of de facto leader of the Quraysh, he's kind of the uncle of Sayyidina Uthman, kind of cousin uncle, but it's like I have so many, and they all call me Jabib, Jabib, kind of, a lot of them are probably my cousin, nephews or nieces, whatever not, but it was kind of along those lines. Okay, so but he was very close then, and he would have protection, and he was a person of authority, Sayyidina Uthman. So the Prophet ﷺ then calls Sayyidina Uthman and says, of course, and then Sayyidina, oh, of course I will go. So he sets off. So he goes alone into Makkah. And he's received. So obviously when he enters, one of the, the way it is, obviously, like I said, the kind of protection you have to get is that someone's there, like I give them protection, and they can enter. And I can't remember who it was, but one of them kind of gave Sayyidina Uthman his camel, kind of like, ride on my camel. So they recognize the fact that, as when the Prophet ﷺ sent his camel, okay, same thing here, they knew them, they knew the camel, they recognized them and all that, not like us, you put them in front of us, we have no idea. But he gives him his camel and then kind of he rides in. Okay, he rides in. There's a lot of hostility because he's a Muslim. He's basically the ambassador of the Prophet ﷺ, but he's protected. Okay, they can't do anything. He's protected. Now, nothing is heard from Sayyidina Uthman for quite some time. Okay, nothing is heard from him, and his kind of negotiations don't really go anywhere, basically. So the Quraysh kind of said, what happens is that, like I said, there's a lot of back and forth, and then the Quraysh kind of decide that they're going to send. Well, actually, I'll read a bit about this because it's almost like, one stands up and then another stands up, because before this, actually, there's another one, and I just want to mention that, but no one kind of pays attention to him. Okay, you go. So while they were still in the state, Budayl ibn Warqa al-Khuzai came with some people from his tribe, Khuzah. So this person decided, took it on himself. He's not a person of authority, etc. I keep mentioning about authority because there was this thing about you're going to go and you're going to try to speak. It's like a case of who are you to speak? Okay, you had to be someone worthy to speak, and then the opposite party in the Quraysh, the opposite party to even listen to you. They probably think, you're not good enough for us to even listen to you. But anyway, this Budayl came with some people from his tribe, Khuzah, who were from the region of Tihama, and they were the advisors and confidants of the Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He said, I left Ka'b ibn Lu'ay and Amr ibn Lu'ay at the abundant water wells of Hudaybiya. They have their women and children with them, and they will wage war against you and prevent you from visiting the house. Again, same thing. The Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, we have not come to fight anyone, but instead to perform the Umrah. war has weakened Quraysh and they have suffered great losses. So if they wish, I will conclude a truce with them, during which they should refrain from interfering between me and the people. If I prevail, they will have the option to embrace Islam as others have, and they will become comfortable. But if they do not accept the truce, then by him in whose hand is my life, I will fight them for my cause until I am killed. But Allah will definitely make his cause victorious. Thereupon Budayl said, I will inform them of what you have said. Okay? I will inform them what you have said. He said, so he set off until he reached Quraysh, and he said, we have come from that man, from the Prophet ﷺ, whom we heard saying something which we will disclose to you if you would like. It's like, he said something to us. If you would like, we will say to you. Okay, we will say to you. Some of the fools amongst them said, we have no need for you to tell us anything about him. But the thoughtful among them said, tell us what you have heard. So obviously you always get the fools. Who are you? We're not going to listen to you. But then they tell you, well, no, tell us what is it you've heard. Tell us what he's saying. And he said, I heard him saying such and such, relating what the Prophet ﷺ had told them. And then this is it. Then this is when Urwa, okay. This is when Urwa. Thereupon Urwa ibn Masud got up and said, O people, are you not like the father? They said, yes. He added, am I not the son? They said, yes. He said, do you accuse me of anything? Meaning, what you got to say about me? And they said, no. He said, do you not know that I invited the people of Ukaz to help you? And when they refused, I brought my relatives and children and those who obeyed me to help you. They said, yes. He said, well, this man has offered you a reasonable proposal. Accept it and let me meet him. They said, okay, you know what? You may meet him. Go on, you can meet him. Okay? So eventually they decide that they're going to send Urwa ibn Masud, okay, as Saqafi. It's from the Bani Saqifa, okay, which is kind of the ruling tribe of Taif. Okay, he's a nobleman, he's a diplomat. He had been sent previously by the Arabs as an envoy to, Heraclius, the Byzantine emperor, to Husra, the Persian king. So, he's well traveled and he's a knowledgeable man. Okay, he's a diplomat. So they send him to negotiate with the Prophet ﷺ along with some others. Okay, and what you have is Martin Lings actually, he kind of describes it quite nicely here. But what I'll probably do is, instead of quoting, I was going to say from Martin Lings, but what I'll do instead is I'll state from. Well, I'll say from the hadith, and then I'll give some explanation on the back of it as well. Okay. So he went and started talking to the Prophet ﷺ. Thereupon the Prophet ﷺ told him the like of what he had told Budayl. Said the same thing. And again, continuously this thing was that the Prophet ﷺ was saying, look, if they have an issue, then just almost step aside, leave it for us. We'll perform Umrah. After we've done the Tawaf, etc., then off we go. Then they can re-enter, back to the Haram. He was giving this option to them. Okay. So whereupon Urwa said, O Muhammad, do you not feel any scruple in destroying your relations? Have you heard of anyone among the Arabs before you that overran his relatives? If the reverse happens, by Allah, I do not see with you dignified people, but people from various tribes who would run away and leave you. So he's saying, look, what are you doing? You're destroying these relations. What you're trying to do. You're destroying these relations. So he's like straight up, he's like trying to show his authority and all that, and straight up trying to, tell the Prophet ﷺ, look, back off. What you're doing, back off. When he says these people that are around you, it's almost like when the time comes, when it gets tough, they're not going to stay around you. They won't be around you. When he said this, and then Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq spoke. Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq who said to him, go, ingratiate yourself upon your idol, Lat. Would we flee from him and leave him alone? He said, look, no chance. Like he was like rude to him. He kind of almost swore at him in this situation. He says, this is a person of Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq who's really calm and nature, but he's like, that's really cool. Said, how dare you say something like that? Would we leave him? And that's when Urwa kind of responded, said, okay, who is this? And they said, Abu Bakr. And then Urwa said, well, by him in whose hand is my life, were it not for the favor that you did to me and which I did not compensate, I would have replied to you. Meaning, he's done, obviously, saying Abu Bakr Siddiq has done favor to him in the past, maybe lent him money or whatnot. He's not given him back. And he said, if it was not for that, I would have given you a reply. So, but I can't really give you a reply. So he continued talking to the Prophet ﷺ. And as he was talking to him, he would try to seize his beard. So the way the Arabs, what they would do when they sit down, they would kind of grab each other's beards, kind of saying, trying to show, this is a kind of easy space. We're both the same. We're equals. Let's have this proper conversation, etc. So he kept grabbing his beard, kind of saying, we're like equals in this kind of confined space. So he would continue to hold his beard. Al-Mughira ibn Shubha was standing near the Prophet ﷺ, holding a sword and wearing a helmet. Whenever Urwa stretched his hand towards the beard of the Prophet ﷺ, Al-Mughira would hit his hand with the handle of the sword and said to him, remove your hand from the beard of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay. Mughira, I'm pretty sure this was the nephew of Urwa. Actually, Mughira was a kind of like a bandit. He would he kind of get off. I don't know, can't remember what the story was around it, but he went away, whatever reason it was. He ran away for whatever reason it was, and then they would kind of attack caravans, bandits, and take the thing about whatever loot it was. When he went eventually to become a Muslim. The Prophet ﷺ said, we'll accept your Islam, but we're not going to accept this money because that's been looted in the wrong way. Okay. And then Urwa raised his head and asked, who is this? They said, he is Al-Mughira ibn Shubha. Thereupon he said, O treacherous man, I am not striving to prevent your treachery. So again, it brings about, okay, here he says it. Al-Mughira, during the period of ignorance, was once in the company of some people, and he killed them, then took their property. Later he came to embrace Islam. The Prophet ﷺ said to him, as regards your Islam, I accept it, but as for the property, I do not take anything of it. Basically, what I just said on there. Okay, so this is the situation kind of thing, and he's like, move your hand kind of thing. You're not the equal. You're not the equal to the Prophet ﷺ. Okay. So remember also what's happening here is Urwa is, although he's come to negotiate, he's also there to take kind of very detailed notes about what's actually going on. Okay, he saw a lot of things. He saw the Muslims in prayer. He saw how they behave themselves. Right, he got to see, and remember, very few of the Quraysh or those opposed to the Prophet ﷺ had actually spent much time with the Muslims, because most of their kind of encounters had been in battle. Those who had spent time with the Muslims outside battle had almost kind of all converted to Islam, because they got to see how the Muslims were. Okay, and I suppose the lesson to learn is how our behavior, that when people spend time with us, their image of Islam changes, their idea about Islam changes. And I think, to be honest, that is in most cases that the answer is yes. Okay, when people encounter Muslims, their impression changes. Look at Urwa, he's a diplomat. He has come to negotiate on behalf of the Quraysh. Okay, and this is what he has to say. And this is interesting because actually this is such a kind of description he gives. He's talking about how the Sahaba were around the Prophet ﷺ. How the Sahaba were around the Prophet ﷺ. Now, normally what happens, like I said, what happens is that when they become a Sahaba, they convert to Islam, they do not talk like this. But this is someone who's kind of spent a bit of time, and now he's realized, and he's gone back and he's telling them this is the situation. Urwa stared at the companions and he narrated, by Allah, whenever the Messenger of Allah spat, the spittle would fall into the hand of one of their men, who would then rub it upon their face and skin for barakah. Okay, if he ordered them, they would carry his orders immediately. If he performed ablution, they would fight over the ablution water. When he spoke, they would lower their voices and would not fix their gaze towards him out of respect for him. Okay, then he says, he goes back to Quraysh and he says to them, Urwa returned to his companion and he said, O people, by Allah, I have been sent as a delegate to kings and to Caesar and Khusro and An-Najashi. But by Allah, so he's been sent to all of these people. He knows how these things are, these kind of proclaimed leaders, kings. He's seen them all. Okay, and he says, I have never seen a king respected by their courtiers as much as the companions of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam respect him. By Allah, if he spat, the spittle would fall upon the hand of one of their men, who would rub it upon his face and skin. If he ordered them, they would carry out his order immediately. If he performed ablution, they would fight over his remaining water. When he spoke, they would lower their voices, and they would not fix their gaze towards him out of respect for him. He has presented to you a good offer, so accept it. Okay? He has presented you a good offer, so accept it. Okay? So this is Urwa, basically. This is what's happened there. So then you have another man by the name of Khulais. Okay? And Khulais is the leader of the tribe. So he says, look, you know what? Let me go. Okay? He's the leader of the tribes allied to the Quraysh. To the group of tribes allied to the Quraysh, so kind of confederate of tribes allied to the Quraysh. He's the leader, and he goes, So the Prophet ﷺ receives word that he's coming, and he knows about. So the Prophet ﷺ knew people, and what they would see as being important. Okay, so he knows that he's a man who has deep respect for rituals of worship. So the Prophet ﷺ arranges that. As he comes, the sacrificial camels are brought and are kind of brought past him. So as he's coming, you can see the sacrifice, these animals. He can see, he's passing by these 70 camels. They're kind of ornamented back. They're kind of how they keep them like that. I suppose in India, Pakistan, like I said, they do a lot with the kind of the bulls, etc. The similar thing to that. Okay, and actually he's so impressed by this. He's so impressed, and actually he doesn't stop. He doesn't stop to speak to the Prophet ﷺ. He goes and he says, these people have come for pilgrimage. Okay, clearly they've come to pilgrimage. Okay, he goes back and he tells the Quraysh, these people have come for pilgrimage. And the Quraysh are planning an attack. The Prophet ﷺ and Hulais is very angry at this, not because of the Prophet ﷺ specifically, but because this is the sacred month. It's the Haram, and they've come for pilgrimage, and you don't do this. Okay, and Hulais gets very angry, and he says to the Quraysh, I did not ally with you for this purpose. I did not ally with you so that you could slaughter pilgrims. And if you're planning on doing this, I will break my treaty with you. So they kind of calm him down and we won't do anything. Now there is, I was trying to find the narration there, but there is, to start off with, there's kind of the Quraysh try to surprise attack the Muslims, but kind of word gets out, and the Prophet ﷺ almost, the Muslims surprise them. They kind of surround them, and no fighting takes place. Okay, no fighting takes place, and then they release them back and they send them back to Quraysh. And this kind of happens a bit at the start as well. There's kind of narrations on that, but I was trying to find specifically that, but I could not find those on the verdict. But yeah, that was one of them. Okay, so quickly here, then a man from the tribe of Qanais said, allow me to go. They said, go to him. When he approached the Prophet ﷺ and his companions, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, this is so and so. He belongs to the tribe that respects sacrificial camels, so bring them to him. So the sacrificial camels were brought before him, and the people welcomed him by reciting the supplication of Ihram. So they all labbaik, Allahumma labbaik, they're reciting the labbaik for Umrah. And he kind of gets shaken by this. He sees all this. When he saw this scene, he said, glory be to Allah, it is not fair to prevent these people from visiting the house. When he returned to his people, he said, I saw the animals decorated and marked. I do not think that they should be prevented from visiting the house. Another person called Mikraz ibn Hafs stood up and said, give me permission to go to him. They said, go to him. When he approached them, the Prophet ﷺ said, he is Mikraz, a man who is obscene. While Mikraz was talking to the Prophet ﷺ, Seerah ibn Umar, right? Okay, we won't go into that part. But then you have another person, Mikraz, who goes, and the Prophet ﷺ, when he sees him coming, he says, this is an obscene person. Nothing good will happen. And that's what happened. Nothing good happened from that. But then the kind of next delegation, that's when things change a bit. But we won't touch upon that yet. We're going to talk about that next week. Okay? But meanwhile, what's happening is, at this point, there's kind of silence from the Quraysh, and a rumor kind of starts to spread around the camp that Uthman has been assassinated. Okay? So Uthman has been assassinated in Mecca. Now, this wasn't the case. In fact, the Quraysh said to Uthman, look, we're not going to allow the Muslims to come to Mecca to perform the pilgrimage, but you more than welcome to perform your pilgrimage. You can go make your tawaf. A message was even sent to Abdullah ibn Ubay, because Abdullah ibn Ubay, the chieftain of the hypocrites, he's also come for pilgrimage, and they send a message to him, and you can come because they knew him. He also, you can come, but he said, look, I'm not going because he needs to get into the good books of the Prophet ﷺ. And one of the reasons for this is that, remember when we spoke last week about the miracle of the water? Okay, when that happened, the kind of companions kind of said to him, what do you say now? What do you say about this? Like amazing miracles that happened in front of you. What do you say about this? And Abdullah ibn Ubay kind of still denied, and they said to him, have you ever seen something like this? And he said, yes, I've seen things like that before. Now someone told the Prophet ﷺ this, but he went to the Prophet ﷺ. He goes, oh no, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I said I've never seen it before. He must have misheard me. So he needed to get into the good books of the Prophet ﷺ, so he can also refuse to perform the pilgrimage. Okay. Now it's around about this time that Urwa actually left the camp, and the companions kind of report that a state came over the Prophet ﷺ, similar to the state that came upon him. Over when the revelation, state come upon him when he received revelation. So he gave instructions then to one of his companions who went through the camp, proclaiming. Proclaiming, the Holy Spirit has descended upon the messenger and commanded allegiance. So go forth in the name of God to make your pledge. Meanwhile, the Prophet ﷺ had seated himself beneath an acacia tree that was green with its spring foliage breaking into leaf, and one by one the companions came and pledged allegiance to him. The first man to reach him was Sinan, who was the same tribe as the Jahsh family, that is the kind of Bani Asad ibn Huzaymah. So what normally happens is when you take a pledge about something. The pledge of Aqaba, for example, just before the Prophet ﷺ left Mecca, the pledge of Aqaba was to defend the Prophet ﷺ against his enemies. Was to protect him in his home, to protect him in Medina and so forth. Others had taken a pledge of allegiance with the Prophet, alliance with the Prophet ﷺ. So Sinan did not know what the pledge was about. So he said, Ya Rasulullah, I pledge myself to you for whatever is in your heart. Whatever you want me, whatever this pledge you want it to be about, I pledge for that, whatever it is. Now this was not a pledge of allegiance in war, because they were in a state of pilgrimage, sanctity. It was not a pledge of alliance because they were the companions. This was not a pledge of Islam, what's called Bayatul Islam, the pledge of Islam, because they were already Muslims. And this is what has now become known as the Bayatul Tariqah, pledge of Tariqah, the pledge of Tariqah, which is to pledge yourself to jihad against yourself, to do mujahada, to struggle against your nafs, to avoid sin, to turn away from that which displeases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is also, obviously, it's known as the pledge of Ridwan. That's another name that's kind of given to it. And all the companions came one by one and pledged their allegiance to the Prophet ﷺ, except for one. Except for one, a hypocrite called Jad ibn Qais, who tried to hide behind a camel, so he didn't have to go and kind of pledge this. He didn't want to, but obviously he had been seen, and they said he hid. Now, Uthman was not present at this point. Because remember, what also happens is the word's kind of getting around that Uthman's been killed, and they say, what, we're going to take revenge, kind of thing. So then you have all this kind of people coming along, whatnot. So Uthman was not there at that time. So Uthman's fate was, the Prophet ﷺ, they did not know what his fate was. So the Prophet ﷺ took his. Now the way it would happen was that the Prophet ﷺ would take out his right hand, and then the Sahaba would come and place their hand on the Prophet ﷺ's blessed hand. But in this case, what the Prophet ﷺ does, he took his left hand and placed it on top of his right hand. Okay, placed on top of his right hand. And he said that this is the pledge of Uthman. This is the pledge of Uthman, okay? And this pledge was referred to, in fact, in two places in Surah Fath, which is about to be revealed. So let's quickly mention this, and then I'll touch upon this basically. Amazing this when we talk about the Sahaba. So let me just quickly find it. Okay, لقد رضي الله عن المؤمنين إذ يبايعونك تحت الشجرة فعلم ما في قلوبهم فأنزل السكينة عليهم وأثابهم فتحا قريبا. Okay, so God was surely well pleased, or indeed, God is well pleased with the believers when they swore allegiance to you under the tree. Okay, He knew what was in their hearts. Okay, of like a sincere intention, loyalty to God's cause. Okay, and therefore He sent down the gift of inner peace, and a kind of reassurance on them, and rewarded them in a near victory. Okay, so Sakina, it's an interesting word. Sakina means tranquility, peace. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Sakina descending upon the believers after one of the battles that He sent down, Sakina upon them, tranquility upon them. But Sakina, or in kind of Hebrew, Shakina, is an angel. Okay, Shakina is an angel, a spirit from God that brings with it tranquility. And some of the ulama say, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks, especially in this regard, about Sakina, between being sent down. So here, you have, in Arabic, you have the alif lam, alif lam, okay? So alif lam has kind of different meanings, okay? As-sakina can simply mean tranquility, He sent tranquility upon them, or it can mean something very specific, okay? Something very specific, something specific here sent down, kind of inverted commas, as-sakina. So a name, like a proper name upon them. Okay. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this, and also mentions at the beginning of the surah. إن الذين يبايعونك إنما يبايعون الله يد الله فوق أيديهم فمن نكث فإنما ينكث على نفسه ومن أوفى بما عاهد عليه الله فسيؤتيه أجرا عظيما. Okay, those who swear allegiance to you, O Messenger, swear allegiance to God only. God's hand is over their hands. Whoever then breaks his oath only to his own harm. Okay, and whoever fulfills what he has covenanted with God, He will grant him a tremendous reward. Okay, so this statement has two kind of important meanings. As obedience to the Messenger ﷺ, upon him peace and blessings, means that the same as obedience to God, as in mentioned in Surah Nisa, verse 80. And his throwing at the enemy means the same as God's throwing, like Surah Al-Anfal, verse 17. The Messenger ﷺ hand being over the hand which he kind of grasps in allegiance represents God's hand. For God, hand or any other kind of such term is kind of metaphorical. The other meaning is that God helps those who swear allegiance to the Messenger ﷺ. So here, hand signifies power. Okay, so this was the pledge of Hudaybiya, and the kind of first verse that recited, لَقَدْ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Okay, is the reason that when we mention the name of the Sahaba, we say radiyallahu anhu. Okay, this comes from Quran. Allah is pleased with them. Okay, Allah is pleased with them. Now imagine this, the fact that, how, look at Sayyidina Uthman, how the Prophet ﷺ told him how privileged he was, how honored he was sent to negotiate. Then all this, when the word gets around, they're all ready. Okay, they're all ready to take revenge if he's been killed. Okay, you have this pledge that comes about then now. Okay, you got this pledge that comes about, and all of this. Now imagine this: you have the Quran mentioning, those who took the pledge. Okay, those who took the pledge then, and unfortunately, you still have these kind of groups, a group of people who, talk so astaghfirullah about the Sahaba. It's just, but it's okay. Well, we're going to go off on one basically if you go there, but this was the pledge. Okay, this pledge. Just a few narrations, and we'll stop on this then. Okay, so Anas ibn Malik narrates, surely we have granted you a magnificent victory. Anas said, this is Al-Hudaybiya. His companion said, pleasant and bountiful, but what is there for us? So Allah revealed that He may admit the believers, men and women alike, into gardens. Abdullah ibn Umar narrated that the people were with the Prophet ﷺ on the day of Al-Hudaybiya, spread out under the shade of the trees. Suddenly the people surrounded the Prophet ﷺ. Thereupon Umar said, O Abdullah, go and see why the people are encircling the Messenger of Allah ﷺ. Whereupon he found them pledging allegiance. So he gave the pledge and returned to Umar, who then went out to give his pledge. Okay, narrated by Ibn Ubayd, narrated Salama, who said, I pledged to the Prophet ﷺ, then I moved to the shade of the tree. When the number of people diminished, he said, O Ibn al-Aqwa, will you not pledge? I replied, I have already pledged, O Messenger of Allah. He said, and again. So I pledged to him a second time. I asked him, O Abu Muslim, unto what thing did you pledge that day? He replied, unto death. Okay, narrated Uthman, the son of Mawa, who said, as for his absence from the pledge of Ridwan, had there been any person in all of Makkah more respectable than Uthman, okay, the Messenger of Allah would have sent him as an envoy instead of Uthman. The pledge of Ridwan happened after Uthman had gone to Makkah. The Messenger of Allah held out his right hand and said, this is the hand of Uthman. He clasped it over his other hand and said, this is for Uthman. And look at how much honor the Prophet ﷺ has given to Sayyidina Uthman. And again, you talk about how can someone talk so about the Sahaba? The Prophet ﷺ saying from himself, like he's taken his own hand and saying, this is Uthman. Look how much honor he's given to Sayyidina Uthman. Okay, look how much honor he's given to him. So this is the pledge of Hudaybiya. So I think what happens next is that the word kind of, I suppose, gets out that they've made this pledge, and some kind of commentate to say that this probably scared the Quraysh. Okay, what they've experienced so much before. Okay, they probably scared the Quraysh, so they kind of let Uthman go back. Off you go back. Okay, let Uthman go back. But yeah, this is the situation at the moment. Now comes so next week, inshallah, we will then move on to the negotiations, which is what Hudaybiya is really kind of, I suppose, remembered for. Okay, and how is it that this, because Surah Fatah is all about kind of Hudaybiya, and it's a victory. How is a victory? How did the Sahaba get a victory? And you can see some of the problems that the kind of a lot of them weren't satisfied. Okay, a lot of them were satisfied when Sayyidina Uthman kind of come back. Sorry, this is I just remembered now, not when I mentioned about satisfied. This is not to do with next week, but when Sayyidina Uthman come back now, some of them, the companions said, oh, you know what, so look, he's managed to spend so much time there, surely he's done tawaf, he's done his job. Could say a bit of jealousy because they were missing the Kaaba so much. Okay, and the Prophet ﷺ said, no, he would not do that. Okay, he would not do that. So when he comes back and they almost like mockingly say to him, oh, you've done your tawaf. Okay, and he looked towards them, and how can you think so bad of me? I think some of the wording is that even if I was there for 10 and 100 years, I would not do it without the Prophet ﷺ. Like as in without the Prophet ﷺ being allowed to, okay, to do it. Okay, and again, once again, this honor of Sayyidina Uthman, time and time again, is mentioned. Okay, so we leave at that, inshallah. Time's up on there. We'll move on to the next part of it next week. Inshallah, I'll have, by the end of this week, I'll get a bit more time so I can start. I'll bring some pictures as well about Hudaybiya, etc. How it is now, I suppose. And obviously some of the differences, because you've always got this, which was the area, when people are trying to identify which was a tree, and say, look, wait a minute, it's hard to recognize trees because there were so many trees and all that. You're going to get that, but the point is, it's within the area, and Hudaybiya, everyone knows it happened there. Okay, so we leave it at that then. Like I said, finish off again, to remind, please, everyone, please make special dua accepted straight after prayers. Well, one of the times when it's raining, etc., and all that, the times of dua acceptance, before dawn, all that. Please remember the people of Palestine in your duas, because this is dua for them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for them. It is truly it's difficult to kind of put into words to describe what they're going through. We get fed whatever we get fed through the media. I suppose one side of things is that now you've got so much more other sources, media, and also you've got I suppose social media, where nothing gets hidden from there. But yeah, it is a real bad state. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for them. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam, Muhammad wa alihi wa sallam, subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun, wa salamun ala al-mursalin, walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin, bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.